Hello and welcome to the Frustration of Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Troy Eadie. And
I'm your co-host, Warren Otter.
Oh, yeah. And so, look, today we're running the Frustration of Freedom podcast. So the last couple of weeks, we've been talking a fair bit about the COVID-19 situation and what's been happening there. I've just got Siri trying to copy everything I'm saying. And look, we got some great feedback from the last couple of podcasts where some people were wanting some more specific and tangible things to be able to implement to support their business and get ready for the September cliff. So today, what we're going to be talking about is the 7 key areas that both Warren and I believe you should be focusing on to have a really clear COVID-19 strategy. Anything you wanted to add there, Warren?
No, not a lot, except for the fact to say that this podcast or this webinar is really about education. We're going to go through our 7 key areas that we think business owners should be covering off, Troy. We're going to encourage people to pop questions in here. And we're also got a guest that's going to come on later on and talk about what he's doing. It's a hot seat, a business owner about what he's doing. So we'll get to that later. And yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So what we'll do is myself and Warren, we're going to take you through the 7 key areas. As we go through the key areas, please ask questions in the Q&A box, and we will get towards that at the end. So let's get started. So Warren, would you like to jump in with the first area you believe people should be focusing on for their COVID strategy?
Yeah, thanks, Troy. We've put together a number of areas that we believe people should be considering in regards to the e-COVID, and we call it e-COVID, the economic COVID crisis. The first one we're going to start off with, from my point of view, is a whole range under the umbrella of restructuring. Now, that can form lots of different ideas, but I just want to touch on about 5 or 6 key points under restructuring. Now, some of you may have already done this, and I'd love to see some comments come up in that. It doesn't have to be a question box. It might be just send us your comments. Some people have already heard about the stories where businesses have adapted their product or their service to and offer what the current market needs. We've heard about the distilleries who are now making hand sanitizers, or the restaurants who are now doing takeaway all the time, or I know a jean manufacturer who's now making gowns and masks rather than making jeans. So it's really important that I see a lot of clients that have got a broad range of skills, yet they keep focusing on what they used to do. And I think one of the restructuring things is to step back and look at some of the other things that you can do and offer your client base and see what your customers actually want now. So I'll just skip through some of those quickly. The other one is, think about renting out some spare space or sell off or rent assets that you've got. Look at what's around. Have you got some spare space or assets that you're not using at the moment that other people might be able to utilise and get some cash in for them? You might not want to sell them off, but you might want to rent them out, or something along those lines. Further on that, maybe you need to, for certain equipment and floor space, or actually sell it off. So if you really don't want that extra piece of equipment, sell it off. And same thing with, I'll come on to it later about some of the finance restructuring, but some of the assets you can sell off, you might be able to upgrade to new items. We'll come back to that a little bit later. Some of the more creative and interesting areas that I've been talking to a lot of clients about, and it looks like almost the opposite to what people think they should be doing in restructuring, is potentially create some strategic alliances with smaller or friendly businesses around your area that might be able to share some overhead costs and create some other aligned functions, such as the buying group, or even dare I say it, with reduced staffing, maybe have one person looking after some of your head office services. To take that one step further, maybe even think about seriously considering merging with another business to form a more robust business, particularly with the September cliff coming forward. Think about what's the business going to look like at the end of September, October, November. Should I merge with another like business or 2 other like businesses to form a stronger business? And finally, and this is happening a little bit at the moment already, look at buying some smaller businesses that may have an order book. So your income might be dropping at the moment, and therefore you can possibly find some other businesses that may have a reasonable order book but have been poorly funded, and therefore they're going to struggle. So maybe talk about with some people about buying some little bolt-on businesses, and I have seen that started to happen right now, and it looks like it's a really strong plan. So there's a few very high-level, quick ideas around restructuring. There are others, but to keep this thing moving, I'll sort of flick back to Troy, and Troy's going to now talk a little bit about, or lead us down the part of leadership, staff utilisation, and improved systems. Unless you've got any questions of me at the moment on that, Troy.
No, yeah. Look, I think that's the restructuring space is a really interesting space, and it's been quite interesting to listen to some of the examples that you've been giving me. Some around the caravan sector, and how they're potentially pulling their resources. Some of them merging and things like that. So yeah, look, I find it really interesting, and it's a space that I normally don't spend much time in. But those who have found anything that sort of stuff quite interesting, I think it's pretty interesting to lean into it. But so then from my perspective, the next step or key area to focus on, particularly, is in leadership. So, what I'm finding is that there's two specific things to be looking at. One is the leadership of yourself, and then second is the leadership of your team. So this week I've had some pretty interesting conversations with some businesses that have been doing it very hard. Like one of them was in the travel industry, and so what we've seen there is that like if you don't have a really clear plan for yourself and a very clear strategy, then your emotions can heavily affect how you're working with your team. So just like the country's coming back online with a very clear plan, what's your plan? What do you want to achieve? What are the steps to get you back and feeling confident around your business? And then making sure that that's really clear. So that'd be probably the first thing I'd say. The second one is about unifying the entire team. So for me right now, and with our clients, I think it's important to get the whole team together and unify around the plan. Where is the business going? What does the business want to achieve? And then touching on what Warren talked about in terms of, who can you help right now? And what are the systems, the processes, what are the actions that need to be put in place to be able to support that goal? So, if you imagine at the top, you've got a goal, and then underneath, you've got a list of actions, systems, processes, things that you need to put in place. But if you and the team can all look at that list, and if you get that done, you're going to achieve that goal. Like that'd be, I think that's ideal for everyone to be unified. And then from that point onwards, making sure that you carve out time, it might be once a week, every Thursday morning, where all of your team is dedicated to actually implementing those systems to achieve that target. And then I think the last thing is just not to forget to have a bit of fun with the team. What we're seeing is that it's interesting moving from face-to-face training to Zoom, but making sure that your team still stays a part of a team, and that you're doing some of the culture building type stuff with your team is really important. So yeah, Warren, they're probably the key things that we're kind of supporting our clients with, and that I'd be recommending.
No, I like what you're saying there, Troy. I mean, particularly, I was talking to a client the other day around the area of training and support for their clients, for their staff. And I think it's important, and like you were saying right now, and the owners are sort of saying, it's really important to use this time when it's a little bit quieter, and use some of the JobKeeper payments to invest in training their staff into new skills and areas for when they get busy again, or to bring them up to speed where they would have liked to prior. Because it's very easy when you've got certain staff that are always so-called busy and they can't get to courses or can't do stuff. And this is a great opportunity, as you just were saying, to realign with where the business might want to be in 3 or 4 or 6 months' time, but bring your team with it, train them, get them up to speed, and get them involved in the process. So I think that's really important. And that involves the staff actually improving and working on the systems as well.
Yeah, no. I agree. And look, I think, yeah, the business should have Operation something, like we have Operation 20, we want to help 20 people, throughout the next couple of months. And the whole team is unified that, and we've got the tasks to go with it. So I'd highly encourage, what is your team unified right now? Like every time you catch up, you're talking about the COVID situation, or you're talking about the project or the operation or the goal that you want to achieve collectively.
No, good. I agree.
Perfect. So then the third step that Warren and I believe it would be a key area to focus on is your finance and cash strategies. So Warren, did you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, thank you for that, Troy. Look, I'm sure everyone's already been told 100 times, in this climate, cash is king. And you've got to focus on preserving cash, accumulating a cash fund, and making sure you're okay. But there are some specific ways that businesses can do it. And by the way, you'll be surprised what people aren't looking at the moment. So just a few things. I've got a particular client that's fairly steady with their revenue at the moment. So they haven't had that big hit of 30% down. It might be 15 or 16 or 17% down. But their biggest problem at the moment is their clients aren't paying them. So their cash inflow is actually dropping significantly. So what we're talking there about is look at only bring on new clients on a COD basis. Even go back to your current client base and try and renegotiate payment terms. Maybe give them some terms, but put some credit card payments in place under an authority rather than you being the bank. It's not a time where private businesses can afford to be the bank to their client base. Yeah. And most people, and I'm going to say it in the next step down, a lot of clients are saying, let's see if we can stretch out our creditors. Well, if you're supplying someone, you're the creditor. So don't allow your customers to stretch you out, because that will bring you down. So obviously the other part about this is, and I know we've said it a fair bit, but I can't emphasise enough that you have to have a day-by-day cash flow budget going out at least 90 to 120 days. The issue is most people are going to say, I don't know what my income is going to be. And that's the problem. That is the main problem. So what you do need to do is put, what are all my outflows going to be over the next 120 days, day by day, and therefore you only put in your cash inflows what you know is going to come in. Yeah. And therefore you'll probably have a shortfall. Unfortunately, we've already done the calculation for a few clients, and if it wasn't for government subsidies, the shortfall would have already caught up on them. So make sure you put your 120-day or more day-by-day cash flow together, and review your options to restructure your longer-term loans. Now, a lot of you may have already done that, but think about it with, get some advice before you just do it. Don't just pick up the phone if you haven't already done this and defer all your loans. Check with it, because at some stage you may want to pick up the phone and say to the bank, I actually need a couple of $100,000. And if you've already put your loans on hold, apparently you're going to the back of the queue about getting more. Yeah. Which doesn't sound logical, but the banks are struggling with all this at the moment as well. The other one is, so I'm going to do the reverse about getting your people to pay quicker. Talk to your larger suppliers, talk to your larger creditors. See if you can restructure how they want to take payment. See if they will allow some of your historical payments to go on a longer term plan, with the ATO allowing it. See how many. I had one client who said they had $64,000 owing to one supplier. And they rang them up, and the supplier said, without question, just pay us $1,000 a month and we'll work it out sometime in the future. The other one is, if you're someone who buys stock, go back to your suppliers and say, look, the stock that we've currently got, can we get a credit for it and have it on consignment? And then as we sell it, we'll pay for it. But I just can't afford to buy new stock or even hold the stock we've currently got, but we would like to be able to sell it for you on your behalf. So you work and start to partner with your creditors. Another thing which probably comes under government subsidies a little bit, your rent. Ensure that your rent, if you're a renter, has been sorted out. If you are down on revenue, ensure that you've got your deferral plan in place and that it's not going to hurt you when the deferral program is over and it comes back and all of a sudden you've got to pay 30-40% extra rent on top of what you have historically been paying. So try and smooth that out at the other end, because it will be difficult at the other end as well. Finally, there's lots of things to talk about in this space, but if you need to talk to your bank about additional cash, just make sure you have a strong plan around it. I can tell you now, you can't just turn up to your bank and say, look, I wouldn't mind another $200,000 because of COVID. And they say, well, what's your plan to get through it? You need to have strategies. You need to have a number of strong strategies. You need to show that you're active. You need to show them that you know your industry, you're doing things. If you turn up and just say, I need 200,000 or whatever the number is, the likelihood of you getting it is not as strong as you having a proper strategy. And just one other quick one, which combines the restructuring with finance and cash strategies, is up until the end of this coming month, the end of June, the federal government's allowed $150,000 immediate write-off for asset purchases. So this is not advice, it's just a suggestion. Talk to your accountants. That's a disclaimer. But if you've got an opportunity, I've got people doing this, they're trading in some of their old equipment, getting cash in the door for it today, go and buying new, faster, more efficient equipment, putting it on finance for a 4 or 5 year finance plan, putting the trading amount straight in the bank, and getting the tax deductibility for the full amount up to $150,000 right now, so they're not going to have another cash tax bill. So that's another area too. So probably just leave it there. There's other areas there to work on, but there's probably enough to throw at people right now.
Yeah. And Warren, just going back to talking about the cash flows, I think that kind of touches a bit on what I was talking about with the leadership of self. We spent some time with a new potential client that's potentially going to come on for us, and just taking them through, what reports they should be getting on a regular basis. So your P&L, your balance sheets matched with your budgets, and then even more ideally, there should be some kind of KPI dashboard. So, looking at your leads, your quotes, number of jobs won, how much is in your WIP, any kind of utilization. If you can get these reports on a regular basis, it's this data that I think is really powerful. And then understanding, why, what do you even want to get from your P&L? What information are you looking at? What lines are important to you? Making sure you communicate to your bookkeeper and accountant, make sure that you're getting what you want. And then, digging deep into the balance sheet. Like, the balance sheet is a really important report for me to work with the client. So I think if you don't know what's on your balance sheet and what those lines mean and how you can use that to manage your business, I think now's the perfect time to really get into that and understand it, to be able to make these smart decisions.
No, I totally agree. Thank you for that. Yeah, I agree. Now, understand, Troy, just try and get through these.
Yep.
You're now talking about to the group about new marketing and sales strategies, because I think this is one of the key areas that businesses are trying to focus on, how to get orders in the door right now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so look, as things start to turn to a more of a brighter note in the economy and so forth, I think a lot of people are starting to turn their minds towards, well, how do we get more leads? How do we get more sales? And how do we get some more money in the door? So what I wanted to do is, I think a lot of people understand marketing to a degree. I wanted to talk about two things that particularly aren't thought about enough. And those two things would be time and referrals. So if we look at referrals first, a lot of the time when people sit down and they do their marketing strategy, they don't typically think about their referrals. What they do is they start at the front. They think, well, how can I get more how can I target more to get more inquiries, to get more quotes, to get more jobs, to then invoice more, to get more money. But at the end of that is the referrals that fills up the pipeline. So I always like to start with that. So what are you doing to encourage referrals? What are you doing to support or make it easier for your current clients to refer, even in this climate? So that's always an interesting thing to think about that you might not have thought about. Then second to that is what I mentioned before around time. So, I think it's one thing to think, well, who are we going to target in this environment? So, Jeff, that's going to be coming on later, an ideal client for him would be accountants and supporting them with their IT. So, okay, so we want to target accountants. So what's the message? What are the landing pages? How do we update our websites or create collateral to generate the leads, to put them in your CRM, to then track the quotes and so forth? But what people don't think about is the impact on time. So you might start working with a marketing consultant now and you might start generating more leads. But if you don't have the systems or the automation in place to track those leads and then to track the progress of those leads, what happens is the leads will come in, and then you or the salespeople might be busy on doing the quotes and then busy tied into the jobs, and then you start to neglect the leads, or even worse, neglect any referrals that come in. And so, yeah, I just thought, something really interesting for me to always do is to focus on what are you doing to systemize and automate or create assets that support referrals and then support the generation of leads and, the consistency or the ability to be able to scale bringing on. I just think, who can you serve right now? What are the list of systems and assets you need to create, whether it's landing pages, websites, CRMs, and so forth? Create that list. And then also think, well, what can we do to support referrals? Create that list. And then you've got your list of what I call would be systems or assets that you want to build. And then make sure you're building them with the intention that it can be scalable. I think if you do those things, you should be able to target new work, bring on more clients, and then scale it beyond September, beyond this year.
Yeah, look, I really think what you're saying makes sense there, Troy. You're also, before this, when we were talking, you were talking about setting up a KPI dashboard to actually monitor some of this as well. Maybe just want to touch on that a little bit, because I'm seeing clients put that sort of stuff together right now, and it's just giving them the heads up.
Yeah, magic. So even right now, so just this week, I was talking to one of our clients, and we were trying to determine who might be another client to target in this environment. And it's beautiful because we've got a KPI dashboard, because we've got some data, we're able to dig in and see, well, who else is buying? And it might only be a small percentage at the moment, but because we've got the data there, we can see, well, maybe we can target them and make that 10% more like 40 or 50%. So I think it's really important right now to be able to invest in systems so that you can see your KPIs, so you can see how many leads you're getting, see how many quotes you're getting. When you win them and lose them, who are you winning with? Who are you losing, and why? And I think, weekly, if you can see that data quite easily, it helps you adjust, particularly the ones you're losing. Like, why are you losing those quotes? What can you do differently? Was it apples for apples? Can you be more competitive? Can you buy better? There's a lot of really good data that helps you both in getting more work or marketing or where you spend your marketing dollars, but it also helps you within the back end in terms of the efficiency or even the product or service that you deliver.
No, thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Beautiful. Look, as we're powering through, please leave any questions that you have in the Q&A box, and we'll get to them. So the next one we've got here, Warren, is about getting really clear on your break-even point as step 5.
Yeah, I'll cover this off fairly quickly. Thanks, Troy. And step 5, or not step 5, but it's one of the critical ones that we think that's important is to work out. I'm working with a few clients now, going through their P&L line by line and working out what's the traditional fixed cost versus your variable costs. And then trying to question on each line, how can we push that fixed cost even lower? Because some of the fixed costs are based on a traditional level of business. Now, if your business has dropped 30%, can you adjust those fixed costs? The classic one is rent, because rent's been, I'll say legislated, but it's been, there's some rules in place now to adjust what was a fixed cost down at the moment. So what we're doing is we're restructuring people's profit and loss to show variable cost and fixed cost. And then we're also linking that into the cash flow budget to make sure that we can actually critique each line in the P&L to work out what the new break-even point would be. And that break-even point is going to have a variable level of sales or revenue. Because people, don't really know from month to month at the moment what the revenue level is going to be. So we've got to fluctuate that up and down and see where you actually can still hang in there and at a point where you can't. So you really do need to know what minimum level of revenue you need to be able to get through this. So that's what we're doing that for. And as I said, it's really important to run this from a profit and loss into a cash flow model. and for extended period of time, as I said before, 120 days plus. So that's just a quick overview of that. So it's moving away from the accruals profit and loss break even to a cash point break even. So hopefully that gives people a bit of a focus there.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Warren. So then step 6 in the 7, or the area 6 in the 7 areas, is what we've kind of coined B2B networking, or more networking. So Warren earlier on talked about, the potential of working in with other industries, but more specifically around potentially merging, or but mainly around merging or buying other businesses. This step here is just a lot lighter than that. So I'll give you an example. So we've got a couple of clients. One's a scaffolder and one's a truss manufacturer. And so what we've done just recently is actually get their reps together and start facilitating just a fortnightly meeting where they work together to be able to support each other achieve their sales targets. But then that idea has pretty much started to just branch out into our other clients. So, I just wanted to share that with you. Who do you already know that potentially is targeting or has a similar client as their client already? So in this case, it was builders. And then how can you start to create an environment where there's a team of you, it might be 4 or 5 of you, all working together to achieve a common goal. So you'll get to, so it's almost going networking, but it's creating your own small group of people that want to work together to support each other to achieve the goals. So if you're if you sell to other businesses, it might be other bookkeepers or other accountants or IT people. But so who in your industry has already got the clients that you want to get to? And then how can you start to work together and meet consistently and start to support each other to service or help those people? So that's the first kind of idea. The second idea in this area is about utilizing your team of experts. So right now, hopefully you do, or you're about to create a really clear plan around where you're going. So we talked about that in terms of unifying your team. But one thing that I think gets neglected is unifying your team of experts that are around you. So most businesses would have an accountant, a bookkeeper, a coach, an IT person, a lawyer, a banker, and so forth. So who are those key people for you? And let's start to get them on a Zoom call together. So get these people on the call and say, this is the strategy. This is the, maybe this is, we're trying to achieve this target of 20, we're counting down, and we want your support to help make it happen. So I think you'll see some really interesting things happen when you unify your experts around your goal and then getting their thoughts on your plan. One thing I've been talking about lately is about how most plans executed effectively typically take a quarter. We really only have, a quarter to get this right. So whatever strategy you put in place, you want the people around you, whether it be your team, your experts, to make sure that you choose the right strategy, because, come, 3 or 4 months from now, you want the business to be back where it was, or if not more, to support, for once the support comes off. So yeah, I thought these were just 2 really good key areas that I think would be really interesting for you to think about. Who can your salespeople or partners be working with to leverage? And then your experts, how clear are they on what you're wanting to achieve? And what are they doing to support you right now in context of that?
I reckon that's really a good suggestion, Troy, because you have got a broader network. That all business owners have a broad network, and it's a great time to actually lean into it. And you probably are leaning into it, but lean into it with a positive way to actually try and get some revenue outcomes from it, rather than just some support. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And look, if it's okay, I might just finally wrap up the last point that we've got and then invite Jeff on just quickly. I know everyone's probably up to their eyeballs and wanting to talk about government subsidies and grants. And you've probably been through all that, and there's really not much more to be heard about or get. But I'd just like to point out a couple of things. One is, I've just seen a client recently that I looked at their ATO portal, and they hadn't received the government cash boost that's supposed to be credit off their PAYG and some of their BAS, and they've missed out on $50,000. And they're about to go to the bank and actually look for some lending. And the first thing the bank said was, I want to look at your ATO portal, and yet it's overdue now because they haven't got the credit. So a lot of business owners probably don't bother looking at their ATO portal too often, but please go and have a look that you're getting what the government have been offering you, because sometimes the ATO at the moment have got a few red flags and questioning for whatever reason. The other one is make sure that your JobKeeper is coming in. I'm sure you've all done that. But there is quite a number of government grants that are out there. I'd just encourage you all to tick them off again and make sure they're coming in. One that a lot of people aren't aware about that's been on for a long time is a federal government grant, which they've modified a little bit at the moment, and it's only for certain sectors, but it's to support COVID strategy development. It's $1 for dollar, up to $40,000 to actually support anything related to supporting or in manufacturing to actually build a strategy around COVID at the moment. And they're fast tracking it. So you can get it in about 2 weeks, but you have to apply. And we have the contacts for that. So happy to talk to people offline. And I've already spoken about the tax deductibility up to $150,000 write-off. Please use it. I think the government may extend it, but they won't tell us that till the 29th of June, and they may not extend it. So it's a big one. So with that all said, I think we probably should let Troy introduce Jeff and see how Jeff's introducing some of these strategies to his business. And to be upfront, Jeff has worked with both of us to some extent, but I'll let Jeff talk about that and you go for it, Troy.
Yes. So let's just recap. So the 7 key areas that we believe you should be analysing, planning and implementing in. So ideas around restructuring, merging, and so forth. Secondly is around leadership. So being really clear around leading yourself and leading your team. And I think it's really important to document that so it's very clear. Thirdly is around having your finance and cash just up to date and managed really well. Your financial foundation will be your emotional foundation, would be the business foundation. So it's very important to have that in place. Then step 4 is around having a very clear marketing strategy, list of all the systems and assets you want to build, and then have the team unified around getting those built and launching it, and then specifically having KPIs to track and measure the results. So it's facts, not feelings. Then 5th, it's about being really clear on your break-even points and then managing that. So adjusting what you need to and then making sure you're managing to that. Number 6 is around utilizing your areas of influence, whether it be for creating some networking to be able to leverage other people to get into other networks, and then also utilizing your team of experts to be unified around the plan that you've created and getting their advice and asking for their support to help you make that happen. And then the last one is 7, being really clear around ticking all the boxes in terms of the government grants, the subsidies that are available to you, both the public ones and the ones that aren't so public. So they're the 7 key areas. So with that being said, Jeff, if we want to welcome you on, so you can turn your microphone on. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good, yeah, all technology working, which is good. So look, Jeff, would you like to maybe introduce yourself, and then we can have a bit of a discussion afterwards.
Yeah, no, for sure. So thank you, and thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah,
so
nice.
look, I mean, just a personal introduction. So Jeff Cornell from Extensive Technology Solutions, been in IT for 40 plus years now. We currently run 3 divisions. So I have a specialist IT services division, and in that we're looking at your support services, hardware, cloud migrations, those types of things. We do a lot of hosting for clients. We have a second division, which is a consumer electronics division, and in that what we do is we support the importers. So it's really a support services division for importers, and it's the importers who supply the big retailers, JB Hi-Fi, Harvey Norman, and all those sorts of people. The third division is quite specialist in the cloud area only, and it's everything Office 365. So it's all around collaboration, mail migration, SharePoint development, that type of thing. Initial reaction when COVID kicked in was we thought, well, we better tighten the belt. We better, watch the outgoings, watch the expenditure. We figured that IT would continue, although we expected the support model to change a bit, and it has. We're very much a business-to-business operation only. We don't typically do business to consumer. And the support model has changed a little bit to that, because you've got some work environments where in a corporate environment, they may have had internal IT in the past, and so people who are working from home, they still had some internal IT to lean on. There are other environments, and we've got various examples, but one example is an aged care facility where most of the administrative staff are not IT specialists, far from it, and they've all been pushed to work from home. Well, that particular environment, they don't have any IT at all. So what's happening in those environments is that we're now getting effectively consumer support calls because they're working from home. And it's, well, I need to connect to work. Okay, we need a little bit more information than that. What sort of internet do you have? I don't know. My printer doesn't work. It's all sorts of things. So the support model's changed a little bit there. But IT, we expected would continue on reasonably well, and it has. We've needed to show some empathy for some customers who have been hit really heavily. They had monthly commitments with us. If they've got no money, what's the point? I mean, you've got to show some empathy here and support them where you can. So, we've said, don't worry about that. We'll work things out. We've either just waived it or discounted it, or, don't worry about the charges. We'll pick them up, further down the track. The Electronics Consumer Support Services division, quite different, because retail was obviously hit harder and harder as stores started to close. So we took some what we thought was proactive steps there. We reduced some casual hours in our workshop and our warehouse, and the revenue did slow, and so did the volume, but it was only temporarily. It seems that the market has really gone online, and so sales of those consumer electronic products, be it large format TVs, LED projectors, lots of things, are all online now. So that business, we're still getting a real flow through that business. So we've actually put those people back onto their normal hours, which is a good thing. So in terms of how the business was hit, the initial reaction from us was to tighten everything up, and then we've slowly relaxed it because it has continued, though it's a slightly different model. As part of this, we're obviously doing some planning ongoing, as most businesses do, but we took some time out to specifically create a project that we call T23. It's an abbreviation for Target 2023. And in that, we've actually, identified a number of things that we need to do. We do want to change the business model as we move forward. We truly expect that the work from home model will stay in place for a majority of companies, even if it's only for a part of the staff, part of the time. It will still be a significant change. The types of challenges we've had with the work from home model has typically been, networks, VPNs, and those sorts of things. That's where people aren't on the cloud. People who are on the cloud properly, they don't have those issues. So, there's a lot of interest in moving to the cloud for mail and SharePoint, like file collaboration, Teams meetings, video collaboration, etc. The biggest issue in all of that is just been security, because as you would well expect, the cyber criminals, they're out there and active, and probably more active than ever. There's loads and loads of people being attacked with phishing emails, and if people don't have multi-factor authentication and those sorts of security measures in place as a bare minimum, there are people who are brute forcing, finding passwords, getting into their mail, and then starting to imitate them to do other sorts of things.
Yeah, Glenn was telling me that Glenn was telling me that you did a report, and one client had been attacked 300 times or something, and
thousands of times,
really?
overseas.
Wow.
And they weren't aware because they didn't have geographical limitation, security around who could access their environment.
Yeah,
you could
right.
lock down the environment. If you're in an Office 365 environment, you can say, well, sure, anyone on our domain, they can log in, but there's nothing outside this geography. You can choose which countries, and there's a lot of configuration around that. So look, lots of attacks, Troy, lots of them.
Wow.
But coming back to so that's kind of the lead in, I suppose, and then happy to talk through those points.
So what is it that what is it that you found most interesting out of the 7 steps, 7 areas?
I think every one of them, and one of them we probably haven't paid enough attention to. But the marketing one, we've never done any marketing. You know, like most of our clients we've had for many years, we get a bit of referral work, and you know, we typically haven't been a marketing organisation. We decided to fast track that, so we took on we recruited an internal digital marketing and social media administrator. We didn't want to take on the guru of everything, because I don't think you can be a guru of everything in marketing. So we wanted to expedite that, and we've talked to some of your team, Troy, and some of your team are helping us with that, just to bring, you know, her up to board and give us some guidance in how we can fast track some of that marketing. But that's going to be key at this point in time. We also, and on the marketing, that's still in its infancy, but we're well on the way. I mean, we've got some good plans to get together. We're dealing with Ben, and I think that will. One of the things it did for us was it made us focus on some key products and services rather than the general. So, and the ideal client, and, you know, what steps we're going to take to earn that credibility, because once you win that client, obviously what we're hoping to do is win the client's clients. And you'll only do that if you've got the credibility, the trust, and the ability to do the job. So marketing is sort of a work in progress. The cash was, I think, a no-brainer. Most businesses would understand that. So we did a quick examination of all the outgoings. We focused very heavily on the large ones that were recurring, your rent and all those things. We spoke to our landlord quite early. He came up with a deal, but it was one of those where we got some subsidy early for a short period of time. But we said, look, that's not really going to be helpful, because we see it hitting us a little bit further down the track, particularly with our product support, that by the time you're wanting us to up the rent to pay back, that's when we're going to have the least cash. So we said, we'll sit on that. We'll continue to pay rent as normal, and we'll worry about that further down the track. But we did sort of pull the pin on most of the unnecessary spending. So cash was an easy one to look at. The next one on your list there was restructuring. That was in our plan anyway, but we had to expedite that. And we found an opportunity. So we went to Warren, and we said look, can we engage you to help us through this, because it's really not our area of expertise. Can we have a look at this opportunity, because we see here's someone else that might be struggling. There might be other reasons for the wanting to get out. However, looking at their products and services and all that, there's a very close alignment. So we're working through that with Warren, and I think just using some external expertise is really good, because it keeps us anonymous. It's a good process to go through, and there's a lot of experience and guidance. So that one's still ongoing. The finance type side of things, well, we haven't yet qualified. We've registered for JobKeeper, but we didn't quite qualify. The revenue hasn't dropped to that percentage, because with most businesses, we've been on a growth plan anyway. I mean, we've been increasing, and so to look at that 30% down on the same period last year is quite a significant drop currently. Now, there are some other methods to do some averages over quarters and that. We're looking at that, but we haven't quite met that criteria. And whilst that would all be helpful, I'd rather not do that. If we can survive on our own, that's fantastic. But what we did do is we looked at the instant asset write-off, and we've done that. We've taken the opportunity to replace a couple of cars that didn't really need replacing. But what we've been able to do is get rates on the new vehicles at really good rates, and we've been able to keep the cash for the outgoing. So that works well. I mean, do you want me to keep going on the others, or?
Look, I think it's really great what you've been doing there, Jeff. You've been really proactive at looking across the different areas of the business, and listening to people's advice and getting it on board. So. I like your last one. I mean, I'm trying to encourage more people to do that at the moment. That was talked before. Upgrade equipment, cars, whatever it may be, and get the deduction now and get the money back into your pocket.
And in some cases, if it's fairly, we took the decision. If it's fairly expensive, we might actually top up with some cash to get some equity up front. If it's a high ticket item, we might not finance the whole lot. We might put in some cash, so some equity, so in case there was an issue, at least we could liquidate it and be ahead.
Good stuff.
Okay, Tim. Yeah, just looking at the time now. So just to stick to our commitments and to wrap up on time.
Yep.
Thank you both for coming. And so for all of you out there, I think it's really important to make sure you're going through these key areas and you're ticking them off and go into some quite detail. Both Warren and I, our commitment is that each of these, we're going to go into more detail. Next week, we've got a bit of a LinkedIn specialist that's going to come on and give even more specific advice around that area, if that's of interest to you. So look, I trust that you got some value. Hopefully you'll be able to go through those areas, make sure you tick the ones you've done and spend a bit of work or time on the ones that you haven't. But thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us. And thank you, Warren.
Thank you, Troy, and thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
See you later. Bye.